Yes, hello, Loonies. You're listening to another episode of Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. Tonight, I am your host, Josh, and I'm filling in for our High Priest, Ray, and Connor. So, Conchu has come to me to ask to talk about Moon Knight. So, we're going to be going back to the 90s, where we're reading Marc Spector Moon Knight, issues number 19 through 21. So, sit back, relax, and get your Conchu on. Yes, welcome, Loonies, to another episode of Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. My name is Josh. I'm taking over hosting duties tonight, filling in for Ray and Connor. Ray is still frolicking in the fields of fatherhood, while Connor is on an archaeological dig in Egypt or something. So I'm going to be your host tonight. So we're going to be looking at some Moon Knight from the 90s, looking over Marc Spector Moon Knight, issues 19 through 21. And but you don't have to worry about just hearing my dull voice tonight. I've roped in a special guest to talk about it. He's getting thrown into some hot waters because he's never listened to podcasts, recorded a podcast, or read Moon Knight. So we'll see how this goes. If you can, everyone can welcome my good friend Chris and former coworker Chris.
Thank you.
Welcome to the
Thanks,
show.
Josh. Good to be here.
All right, cool. Yeah, so this is all new territory for you, and hopefully this all goes well for both of us, because this is my first time hosting anything, and I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie. So, all right. So, you and I used to work together, and we used to work together at this little hellhole called Subway.
Yeah.
You have moved on to bigger and better things, and yet I'm still trapped there. And, that's all we need to say about that. But when we do used to work together, we used to talk about comics a lot. Everything. I was one of the really the only other person I really worked with that is really into comics, so that was cool. I know we used to talk a lot about it back in the day and let each other borrow comics.
Yeah.
I remember you let me borrow Batman: The Court of Owls. I think was the first time I read that one. That was cool.
Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah, Spawn. You let me borrow first thing of Spawn. I should get back into Spawn.
Spawn's great. Yeah, I should too. As a matter of fact, yeah.
I let you borrow like Iron Man Extremis.
Yep.
And speaking of 90s spectacular, Spider-Man Maximum Carnage.
Oh, that was some good stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we've known each other for a little while. So when Ray asked me if I'd be interested in hosting an episode, I figured, well, the only other person I know that's really into comics is Goose. So I figured, well, why not? We'll give this a go. So why don't you tell the listeners just a little about yourself? Where do you come from?
Well, yep. My name's Chris, and I used to work with Josh at Subway, and now I've moved on to Penske as a claims writer.
Okay, writings. Yes. So to be honest, I didn't really know what I didn't know what you moved on to be honest. So, well, you've done actually a lot of writing, haven't you? You've written a book and stuff, right?
I've written a book. I wrote that when I was in high school originally, and then I've been working on it a little bit ever since. And now I've self-published it on Amazon called Crystals of Fate.
Oh, cool. So, do you want to give them like a little bit of a summary?
Oh yeah, sure. So basically, there are 3 crystals, and each have their own individual powers. One amplifies physical strength, one magical, one spiritual. But bring them together, you can control fate, and your power is only as great as your imagination.
Huh.
And pretty much the story is about a wizard who wants to get all 3 crystals and use them to save his wife from a vampire emperor. I think that's a good thing, but it's not, because he's using extreme evil methods to get the crystals, because he figures, well, as long as I can save my wife with the crystals of fate, I can then use fate to undo all the terrible things I've done, all the people I've killed, the towns I've burned. And my heroes come together to stop this guy, and they hate each other at first. Some even try to kill each other, but
It actually sounds familiar with the books we're going to kind of talk about, to be honest. But yeah, so is that because it's a whole trilogy, right? It's not just
That's only the first book.
That's just the first book, but you're working on a trilogy, right?
Yes, I am. And the second one, I'm editing up right now to release that one as well. That one's the Crusade for the Lost City, and that one's a huge war between humans and vampires. And my heroes from the first book, they get divided and they each go their own separate paths on the war, and they each grow in their own ways. And that one's they get better as they go along. I'm actually done with the whole series. It's just a matter of making it better and getting it ready to be put out there. The first one's out there on Amazon, only $3.99 for the Kindle version.
All right, cool. That's something you've been working on for a while, haven't you? You said you've been working on it since you were... How long have you been working on it again? A long time, I know.
High school, I started when I was 16, finished when I was 18.
Oh, cool. So, definitely been a work in progress for a while. It's cool. I haven't read it, but I know you've talked to me about it, and it sounds pretty interesting. So it's like a fantasy, kind of Lord of the Rings kind of esque kind of thing.
Yeah, very, very high fantasy. I say I got a lot of inspiration from Final Fantasy, because in the book you'll notice flying airships, magic crystals. I definitely loved that series, and it definitely had a strong influence on my writing.
All right, cool. So if any loonies are out there keen to read some actual books, not comics, you can go on to Amazon and just search. I guess you can just search The Crystals of Fate, right, and that'll come up.
Yep.
Okay. So there, if anyone's interested in reading some fantasy stuff, go ahead and check that out. Only $3.99, so it's a pretty good deal.
Face front, true believers, and riddle me this. Do you enjoy comics? Great. Well, you're already halfway there. Join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as listener and producer. My new weekly to bi-weekly show deals with the heroes that don't get enough credit. Street-level heroes like Daredevil, Moon Knight, Spider-Man, and the like. With a strong emphasis on stories that don't get quite enough credit either. Or perhaps are just plain goofy, with the occasional look into jumping on points for new readers who might be interested. I'm Ethan Ainsworth, and this is Knights, a Marvel podcast. Check me out on Podbean and iTunes.
Fun isn't something one considers when balancing the universe, but this podcast does put a smile on my face.
All right, so another thing we like to do when we get any guests on is we like to do what's called an LCS Spotlight, which is kind of going over and kind of just giving our local comic book shops a moment in the spotlight, basically. Now, you've told me that you don't collect like monthly comics or go to a local comic book shop on a regular basis. But that's okay. The last time I was on, I did mention a little bit about Golden Eagle Comics here in Reading, Pennsylvania. And that's a place you used to go to, like back in the day, right?
Yep, that's right. Yep. The last time I really was there collecting comics was I collected Ultimate X-Men, and when Ultimate X-Men stopped, I really didn't have anything new to replace it. So.
Oh, okay. So it's been a little while.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is kind of good because what we like to do is we kind of like to give like a little description of the place, and that way you can kind of get a glimpse of it. And this is good because you haven't been. They just recently moved to a new spot about like 3 months ago or so. So the whole store is completely laid out differently. So I guess we can kill two birds with one stone. Everyone else can learn, and you can learn too about how the store is laid out. So yeah, so it's people here won't know this, but if you if it's right along Fifth Street Highway, right next, a little bit away from where the Boscos is at. So it's right along the main road, so they can get a little bit more traffic in there. But if you remember, the old store in the Fairgrounds Mall used to be really long and narrow, but really long. This one is more like a regular square shape. So they don't have as much room, but it's still a decent size. But they do have all the long boxes are like right in front of the door. So as soon as you go in, you see comics, you know it's a comic book shop.
Okay.
So you have all your long boxes of all your back issues. Along the front window on a shelf, the shelf is facing inwards. The sun isn't hitting the books, so no one panic. Their books aren't getting damaged from the sunlight. But they got all like your your indie books. So you got your Valiant, Image, Dark Horse, IDW, all like the indie books they have right there. On the right side wall is where you got all like your big two. You got your Marvel, you got your DC. A whole bunch of racks of all monthly, weekly books come out. They're all right there. In the middle, you have your shelves of like your trade paperbacks. They don't have a huge collection. They have a decent size one. And then like right in the middle of the store, there's a bunch of maybe about a dozen, maybe long boxes, all books that are all 75 cents and 25 cents. You gotta have to kind of move them around because there's not much room for them. So it's sort of kind of like a treasure hunt. Like you have to move the boxes around to get into it. It's sort of like the end of like the Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones. It's what it kind of feels like. You have all those boxes around. You gotta go look around digging for treasures in there. The left side of the store is mainly just all like cards and stuff. I'm not into cards like Magic the Gathering and all. Like I think I have some Pokemon and stuff, but I'm not into that. And then along the back they have all your wall books. So that's all like your higher priced ones. So like any like Silver Age ones, or if there's any like keys. They actually did this. Is actually kind of interesting. A couple must have been maybe about a year ago. At their old location, they actually did have a copy of Incredible Hulk number 181, which is the first appearance of Wolverine, which is pretty jacked up in price. Obviously, it was way out of my price range, but I was like, I cannot believe I'm standing like maybe 7 feet away from it.
Oh, that's cool.
I wish I could have just asked to hold it, but yeah. So they do get some decent books. They also had. What was I think? Amazing Spider-Man 252, which is the first appearance of the black suit Spider-Man, like the symbiote.
Oh, nice!
They had
nice.
that there too. I should have grabbed it. I regret not grabbing it because I think it was like $20-some. I wish I would have grabbed it.
So question: at their old location, at the back of the store, they used to have like gaming tables for, I guess, people played various games. Do they still have those gaming tables?
I think they have. I think there's like a back room, maybe like an old storage room, because it used to be an old furniture place. So I think there's like a back room where they used to have extra stuff. I haven't gone back there, but I think they do. So I guess they do have the sort amount of a similar space, but they are just, I guess they're just spread out between two separate rooms. But yeah, it's a good little place. Other people that have come on here and talk about their local comic book shops, like, oh yeah, I know the people, they're really good. I'm not a social person at all, and I can't make small talk crap, so I don't really know the people. But everyone pretty much seems nice, so yeah, it's a cool little place. I would suggest if you ever get a free chance, just go over there and check it out once in a while. It's pretty cool. But yeah, then there's another place we can talk about, not necessarily a comic book shop, but it's a place where, ironically, you and I both went into separately, but almost like within like the same week. There's another shop called Symbiote Collectibles here in Reading, Pennsylvania. It's not necessarily really a comic book shop. It's more of a collectible shop, but they do have comics there, so that's why I'm bringing it up. Did you look around any of the collectibles at all when you were in there?
I briefly looked through them, and I saw a lot of old Marvel toys that I used to have as a kid. So the old school Doctor Doom, I used to have him, and all these old school figurines.
Oh yeah, it's like a walk down memory lane, like toy wise. Because if you looked in there, because I looked in there before, and actually this place, they used to be right around the corner in a smaller spot, and the spot that they're in now was an actual comic book shop. But that place, it was cool the first like 2 times, but in the past 2 years, it kind of just became a joke. And then when they eventually closed out, this place moved in there. They got a lot more space to put stuff. But anyways, they have a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's just like a walk down memory lane. Like for me especially, they have a lot of the old not old, I guess old for me, I guess, but Star Wars figures. Like with the line that came out, I think it was called Power Over the Force, that came out when they released the Star Wars Special Edition in the late 90s. They had a bunch of those figures, and I'm just like, oh my god. There's some I actually still have some that have been out in the living room, but just seeing a lot of them, just oh man, and then all the prequel ones too. So it's really cool seeing all that stuff. And I know they had some other stuff like Ninja Turtles and Transformers and G.I. Joe. It's just really cool to see all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the comics, they have a decent sized collection, decentish, I guess. But they do have some cool stuff. I did pick up a couple. I think I picked up Captain America. I think I picked up a Spider-Man, and I think an Avengers one too. I picked up just a couple. They did have some in there, but some they don't have marked, and unfortunately, they look up the prices using a guide online. So I tried to steer away from the ones that didn't have a price to go up. But you got some cool stuff over there that you showed me that you got too. What'd you pick up again?
Yeah, I picked up I found a really cool one. The first X Factor.
Ooh.
#1, and it's really cool to read because it tells how Jean Grey survived after back when you were first reading it, you think Jean Grey died as Dark Phoenix when she sacrificed herself and let herself be shot by that laser cannon. But then you learn
Dark Phoenix Saga.
But then you learn later that when the shuttle originally crashed and Phoenix rose up, that wasn't even Jean. That was the Phoenix incarnate of Jean, and Jean was still underwater, the real Jean. So it was never Jean that died.
Huh.
I thought that was cool how they revealed that and pulled that off pretty nicely, I thought.
That's cool. And there's another one you picked up too.
It was a Conan one.
Oh, okay.
Black and white, old school sort of Conan, and I'm not sure what number it was, but it was pretty cool stuff.
Okay, that's actually kind of interesting because that might have been that sounds like it's like a 70s thing because actually we're tying this into Moon Knight in the 70s before Moon Knight got his own series. He actually had a couple like backup stories in the Hulk magazine, which sounds like it's similar. They were all black and white, and Moon Knight had a couple. I think maybe about like 7, I guess, like kind of like backup stories in there. So I guess they're kind of like the similar titles where they're more like magazines instead of like your standard comics, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of cool. I didn't know they did other ones like that. So Conan, yeah, I've never read anything about Conan. I had a couple books I got from my dad, but I think I gave them to my sister or something. I never read them, but
I would recommend the Conan Dark Horse series. They did that. Well, started quite a few years ago, but the art's really awesome. The story's really good. So I still have to catch up because they're like on volume 20 and I'm on volume 8.
Oh wow!
So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, maybe I'll have to check it out. Eventually I'll catch up on everything I have to read, but yeah, I'm always looking for new stuff to expand into. But anyway, so speaking of comics, we've been doing that for so far we've been recording. So how'd you get into comics? I love asking people how they got into it because everyone has a different story. So what got you into comics?
That's true. I would say what got me into my comics was my cousin Joel, because he was always into comics. He was into a little bit of everything. He knew so much about every single comic, every single superhero. He was definitely my hero growing up. So to me, comics were never like nerdy because Joel wasn't. He was cool. So I always associated comics and superheroes with being cool. Quite the opposite from what most people think. But I viewed it as if you didn't like comics, you were kind of like ignorant and didn't know what was really cool.
It's kind of how it is nowadays. Now with like the comic books are bigger and comic book media is bigger than they have ever been before. Now it's like, well, you haven't seen the Avengers. What's wrong with you? You know. Yeah. Now it's like before back they like, oh, I read the Avengers. It's like, pfft, nerd. It's like now it's like you haven't seen it. Yeah, like you're the outcast. Yeah, exactly. Oh, so that's cool. So so did you kind of just read Joel's? Did he let you borrow them, or did he
would give me comics for free. In fact, he gave me the first Savage Dragon ever made. The first one, because Savage Dragon originally premiered in a miniseries, a 4-issue miniseries, to see how it would go.
Oh, right. I remember.
I had #1 in the miniseries. A couple of years ago, I actually got it signed by Eric Larson.
Oh, really cool.
Got to meet him and shake his hand. Seemed like a really cool guy. But Savage Dragon was the first comic I actually ever collected. Because before that, Joel would give me individual issues. I would read them, but I never actually started collecting until Savage Dragon. Then I bought my own issues. I saved up my own allowance money back then.
Oh.
Whenever I could, I would pick up the issue.
That's cool. I did find a copy of Savage Dragon #1, like the regular #1. I do have it. I haven't read it, but I forget somewhere. I was like, I think it was for like $1 or something like that. Like, oh, I'll pick it up at the $1. Why not? So that's cool. I've never read it, but I might have to pull that one out and read it.
Savage Dragon's still going strong. He's in the 200s now.
That's still Eric Larson, right? He's
still doing it.
Jeez, he's been doing that since what, 92,
yeah,
93?
Yes,
yeah.
still going strong.
That boom of Image, yeah. So that's cool. Were there any other books, like any like Marvel books or DC books that he would let you borrow that you remember? I know it was probably a while ago.
One of my first X-Men was the series called Executioner's Song.
Oh.
Which is, if you're not familiar, is really around Cable and Strife. Strife is the X-Men villain. He's like a twin for Cable, or like an alternate Cable. Gets confusing, but
yeah, I know there's a lot of that era is a lot of like time travel and clones and yeah.
But it's a really cool story and 12 issues that's what really got me into X-Men. And then I would watch the X-Men cartoon and then when I was older I would collect X-Men. Well, first I started with Ultimate X-Men, but then I would go back and read like the original X-Men from like the 60s and 70s, and then I would broaden into the 80s and 90s. So I have a good significant X-Men collection.
You still have them?
I have them all.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because if you look over all my boxes over there, I have a lot of Marvel, and I do have a decent amount of X-Men. But for some reason, I have a lot of them. But for some reason, they're like ones I can't like get into. I've read issues. I have some. I've read like the big stories. I read like Days of Future Past, which is pretty good. Dark Phoenix Saga I just read a couple months ago. I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah.
God Loves Man Kills. That one was
that's
really
great.
Good.
Yeah.
But for some odd reason, like between like the big story arcs, just like your one-off stories or whatever, like not your critically acclaimed stuff, I read it, and for some reason, I just can't. I can't get into it. It's not that I don't like it, but it's like it's not one where I'm like, okay, I got to read the next one that I have.
Yeah.
So like what? So like, and obviously you've told me before that they're like one of your favorites. What makes the X-Men stand out like to you? Like why are they one of your favorites?
Oh, okay.
Try to sell me on X-Men.
Okay, that's a good question. Well, because a lot of superheroes are individuals, and the story is about them. Like Spider-Man's about Spider-Man, Captain America is about Captain America, but X-Men are about a team, and this team is always growing, always evolving, and it's not just about one character. It's not just about Cyclops. It's not about Professor X, because the characters there's always new characters. It's always changing. It's always evolving. You could say the same. I guess you could argue the same for Avengers, but the X-Men are united because they're of the same race. They're all mutants. They all are X-Factor positive, and
they're all kind of outcasts too. Because I know there was it originally when they were originally conceived back in like the 60s. It was sort of like a parallel of the kind of the like civil rights.
Yep. Yeah, it's true.
So I guess So I think team wise, I do think the X-Men is like what it stands for is a lot better, and I do think because those characters are only like you only really see like Cyclops and Phoenix and I'm blanking on my X-Men like Beast and like Angel. They're all you only see them in X-Men. Where like for example like the Avengers, you get Thor, Iron Man, Captain America in there, but then they also have their own titles too.
Yeah.
Cool. So So I do agree with what you're saying. Like, they are. They're all kind of united by the fact that they are kind of shunned by the world. So that's cool. Yeah. Like the books that I'm reading, or like the ones I have kind of a range between a lot of mid 80s and early 90s. Now the stuff I'm talking about is like the mid 80s stuff. Now I don't know if there's like a big difference between like the mid 80s stuff and like the early 90s stuff. Like is if you had to pick like a favorite era, like what would you pick that it would be?
Well, that's a good question. It's also kind of tricky. I really love Chris Claremont's era. era, from his very first X-Men, where he basically repumped X-Men. X-Men was dying, like nobody was buying it, and then he releases this with all these new characters. You got Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus. This new diverse team, and they're awesome. Storm's probably one of my favorite female heroes. She's awesome, and so definitely from the very beginning to Days of the Future Past, he is on fire, and the one battle with Magneto inside the volcano is really epic.
Oh, wow. I might have to look into that.
And, yeah, so that stuff's really great, but I also really love the series in the 90s. This one, an alternate dark history occurs where when Charles Xavier's son, Legion, he tries to kill goes back in time to kill Magneto to make his father proud but what he doesn't count on is Xavier sacrifices himself for Magneto, and Xavier dies, and when that happens it creates a dark history called the Age of Apocalypse.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that.
And everything changes. Everything gets darker, and all the characters that you think you don't anymore. Some are villains. Cyclops is working for Apocalypse.
Oh, wow.
It's one of his prelates, but and Magneto is the leader of the X-Men.
Oh, wow.
So everything goes upside down, and the only one who can fix it is Bishop, because he's the only one that remains, because he's originally a time traveler. He gets to live. He got sucked into this new world, and he's a little crazy from going through that, but he's the only one that knows there's a better world, and he gets the X-Men to believe in his better world and try to get him back in time to change things. And it's just a really epic storyline. It's really cool to see how it's changed, and the world's gotten a lot darker. Like I said, the characters are different, and characters die. A lot of the characters die in Age of Apocalypse, but it's a very cool story arc.
Oh, that definitely does sound pretty cool. I know it's very expansive, and I know it's one of I know throughout the whole '90s when the Marvel had its whole crash, X-Men was the one that kind of stand tall throughout the whole thing. I know that big store was kind of they're everything, nothing else is selling. This is going to carry our company, so let's pump this out and get this big grand story out.
Well, there's one other from the '90s I want to bring out, and it's Onslaught. Onslaught is it's kind of like Xavier and Magneto combined in this rage-filled creature that wants to that wants Xavier's dreams, but uses Magneto's means to make them happen. And it's a very cool story arc, because you just don't see darkness inside Xavier. Until then, Xavier was perfect. He's almost like a saint. He doesn't do anything wrong. He doesn't make mistakes. But here he is. Well, it started when he wiped Magneto's mind, because that laid the seeds for Onslaught.
Oh, right.
But you see a darker side to Xavier in this series, and it makes you see that he's flawed too. He's not perfect. And it's just cool to see that a darker side to Xavier, that he could create this monster that almost destroys the world, and it takes the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men to stop him. It takes the whole Marvel Universe to bring down Onslaught.
And actually, I think, if I remember correctly, that's actually what the event they used to kind of relaunch the whole universe, because, as I was saying before, the Marvel sales were really declining, so bad, and because Marvel, unlike DC, which at the time was backed by Warner Brothers, they had a parent company, so they didn't have to worry about going bankrupt or anything. But Marvel was an independent. I think they did have some ownership with other companies that did own them. But they're so far down the ditches that they were the only way we're going to get back out of here is, we're going to sell all the furniture in the bullpen. They did that multiple times. That's a true story. Apparently, from the words of Brian Michael Bendis, if you know him.
I know who he is. Yeah,
I heard something where he told that story. They were just selling furniture just to pay the rent. But anyways, but they're but in order to boost sales in our books, we're going to basically relaunch our almost an entire universe with we're going to use this Onslaught saga, and did something where like I think I said at the end was it like Franklin Richards and he like create like pocket dimensions or something like that.
Yes, and that leads into because all the heroes, well, not the X-Men, but all the heroes sacrifice themselves to bring Onslaught down. And Franklin Richards, he creates this alternate, but the pocket dimension to bring the heroes back in something that was called Heroes Reborn, and that's what Josh was talking about, the relaunching of everything.
Mm-hmm. And then like, after that, then they relaunched, or that was sort of like a story to kind of see the Stones relaunching. Then they fully relaunched, I guess, with what Heroes Return, I think is what it was. But basically all the heroes died to get new number ones, basically.
Yes.
But actually, I think really the only one that stands throughout the whole thing was the X-Men, really, because all the ones like your Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, like Iron Man, Avenger, they all got canceled at whatever their numbers were and started with number one. But I think Uncanny X-Men just kept going on until like 500 something right now. And then now, if you pay attention to their comics now, Marvel just relaunches every 2 years. They cancel and they relaunch the next month. Basically, just okay, well, our sales are down. Let's get an extra 20,000 copies. We're putting out a new number one. It's kind of ridiculous now. If you try to jump back into getting into like current comics now, at least for Marvel, it's kind of a mess because you don't know because like every character has like 12 volumes because they cancel them after like 12 issues. It's kind of a mess now.
Right now, I'm so far behind in X-Men, but I would love to get caught up, but it's intimidating. And the last thing I read from X-Men was that X-Men crossover where it was X-Men versus Avengers. And
okay.
And I didn't even finish all that, but I would love to get back into that and see where things are now.
Well, actually, I guess this is a good time to bring up. I know a couple weeks ago I think they are going to be relaunching Uncanny X-Men, I think in October, sometime later in the year they are going to be relaunching.
Oh, that's great to know.
Like they've been doing X-Men books for a little while, like different ones. They've had different teams where it's like X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue, X-Men Red. I think they just canceled 2 of them or whatever. So they've been doing them, but they haven't been very significant. But I think this is the first time they're going back to full like Uncanny X-Men. So I think it might be a good, because also Marvel, they just started this new thing called the Fresh Start, which is where I kind of just jumped on, because really Moon Knight was the only one I really bought regularly, because I'm like, I don't know where to start for like any like Iron Man, Captain America. There's so much stuff going on. Where do I start? This is called a Fresh Start. Here's new number one. So I jumped on, and most of it has been pretty good. The Avengers, I'm gonna drop after this next issue, but all the other ones have been kind of solid. So I think this is like included in that sort of kind of fresh start. So I would say maybe you could just, if they play their cards right, that would be maybe a good launching on point for you. Maybe if you want to get back into current.
I think I do. Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. And you can always do it if you don't get it in print. You can always do it digitally too. They do have. You can buy them digitally on like the Marvel Comics app. So yeah, you can get them digitally or in print. So I wanted to tell you that because I know you're into X-Men, so I figured that would be a good thing for you. And just real quickly, just so I don't know if you've heard the news recently that the deal, because there's been Disney has been trying to buy out Fox that owns the film rights for X-Men and Fantastic Four, and they've been the deal has been sort of gone through and then not, and then Comcast has been bidding them, but I think just a couple weeks ago, I think it's been finally approved. So I think the X-Men are finally going to be, their film rights are going to be finally owned by, well, Disney, I guess, who owns Marvel, but basically we may in the future see the X-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That would be cool because, listen to the comics, they cross over with Avengers and the rest of the Marvel world a lot. And the X-Men, I think, are a pretty central part to the Marvel Universe. So to have them not there, it's like a hole.
Yeah, and I'm glad like they took a step when they got Spider-Man back, which is really good, and I think having the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in there would be really cool. That would really cement it. I know the X-Men would be it'd be interesting because you can see like which ones are going to introduce when, And there's so many different covers they can include. And I'm also excited to see the Fantastic Four in it too, because they actually just returned the Fantastic Four to the Marvel Universe. They just put out the new #1 this past week. That'll date this episode, but yeah. So I'm really excited to see both of those teams included in the MCU. So crossing our fingers. Hopefully everything goes well and they do a good job with it. Hopefully. So.
Do you think we'll see a good Fantastic Four movie?
I hope. I don't mind the ones that are from the mid 2000s. I think they're of the era, obviously, but I don't mind them so much. And I will say, to my shame, and I'm putting it on record now because this is going to go out, when I saw the Fantastic Four 2015 movie, I was like, oh, that was cool. Like, what is everyone bitching about? And then when I really heard everyone complain about it, I'm like, oh, that was dumb. That was stupid. This is bad. And then I think I tried watching it again. I'm like, I can't finish this. This is so bad. So I gave it some praise that it definitely did not deserve. But yeah, so hopefully with everything under one banner, we'll really get all the corners of the MCU, hopefully. And speaking of getting everything into the MCU, one of the things that I know I have been, and I know a lot of the listeners, obviously, and just other people in general, would really like to see Moon Knight thrown into the MCU. And I'm hoping at some point we do get. I figured we should maybe kind of start talking about Moon Knight, since we've been kind of going on X-Men for a little while. So, all right. So, yeah. So I guess I could ask you, Chris, how did you get into Moon Knight?
Well, you asking me to do this podcast with you.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I guess that would be true. I know I talked to you about him before, and I brought him up to you when we worked together. I'll talk to you about him. But I know you said you haven't really read. No, have you read maybe anything, not one of his books, but maybe a book where he guest starred in? Because I know for every once in a while he would guest star in other characters' books. Did you ever read any of those?
Nothing like that, but when I was younger, I did get a Moon Knight comic, but I just don't remember too much about it other than he teamed up with someone and they were fighting these guys with the spiked armor, and the other guy was like, what do we do? Where do we hit him? And Moon Knight's like, between the spikes, and then he proceeds to take these guys out. But
I wonder what that could be. Maybe I'll have, after we're done here, maybe I'll pull out my Moon Knight box and you can pick through, maybe you can see, because I have this entire run of Marc Spector Moon Knight we're going to be talking about. I have the entire run except for one issue number 57, which is the tie-in to the Infinity Crusade, I think. And I think if you go back a couple months worth of episodes, I think Ray and Connor did review it, and I know they did not enjoy it very much, and I know because I've read the comics that come after that, and I did not very enjoy that last 10 issues of Moon Knight in that run. It got very 90s extreme. But anyways, maybe I'll have you look through the run. Maybe you can pick out a cover. Or it might have been one of the earlier runs too, because he had a couple runs before that. But
cool.
Anyways, so Chris's first real exposure to Moon Knight was me asking him to be on the show. But don't worry, I didn't just have him come in dry. I gave him probably the best primer that anyone can get. I gave Chris Charlie Houston's The Bottom to kind of get him caught up and kind of get a feel for the character before we dove into the other main books we're going to talk about. So, what did you think of this? Did you enjoy it?
Oh, I enjoyed it very much. The art was great, and so was the story. It really made the character really seem really cool. And yeah.
Yeah, the art is really. If you just look just at the cover of the trade cover is the same cover as the first issue of it. But just looking at that cover, it just you know exactly what you're in for. And like this is like some of the best art is in this book here. David Finch is the artist, and he really does it. And then I don't remember the colorist, but really this is just a whole standout trade paperback. And the whole run I think is pretty good. It's pretty highly acclaimed. It's one of the most highly acclaimed ones. But this issue. So So you sort of got a feel for the whole character, sort of like his like brutality, and did you sort of kind of understand to be honest, I haven't really read through it in a couple years. When I was trying to figure out who to do this with, I was like, well, what should I give you to get you caught up? So I gave you this, and I looked through it. I'm like, I forgot how awesome this is, but I haven't read through it fully. But I don't remember if they do a lot. Did you kind of get the whole kind of like his whole mental thing? I don't know if they touched on it, but he does have like the multiple personalities.
They did touch on it, but I didn't really get it too much. But yeah, it was really awesome, and definitely the fighting is very brutal. But
oh yes, the fight against Bushman, the guy with the face tattoos, just that.
I know who he was, but yeah, that was awesome. But fight.
He's like his arch enemy. I think they do touch on it a bit, but like when Marc was a mercenary, him and Bushman, I think, and Frenchie, the French guy, they were mercenaries together, and then they did some work for Marlene, his girlfriend in this.
Right.
They were like kind of, I guess, I don't know if they were bodyguards or, but they're all based along this archaeological dig, and when basically Bushman was like, I'm going to kill all of them, I'm going to take all these artifacts because I'm going to get rich, and Marc was like, no, I'm not going to let you do that, and they fight, and he leaves them. Basically, Marc gets his ass kicked by Bushman, and then he's left to die, and then Marc basically dies in front of a statue of Khonshu, and he gets resurrected as basically Khonshu's avatar to be on Earth, and the Bushman is the reason because he beat him up and left him for dead. So Bushman is like his arch enemy. So here's like their ultimate battle, and it's one of those brutal things I've ever seen in general. I guess I would say it's the whole part where they're tussling off the building and Moon Knight falls and he busts his legs. It's so brutal. And then at the very end, the very end of that fight, you think he's toast, and then he just summons his strength, and then he just cuts his face off.
Yes.
Ugh, jeez.
One thing that really stood out about Moon Knight, I think that separates him from like any other superhero. He's empowered by a god, and I think that's because other superheroes, they follow their own conscience, they follow their own code, but they don't really. Moon Knight kind of has a master. He has a god that he serves, a god of vengeance, and I just think that's pretty cool.
And I do like how in this one, how they show like when Khonshu is talking to Marc, is they show the faceless Bushman.
Yes.
I think that's all. The first time I was like, what is going on? I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, honestly, and that does continue into the next couple of trades. Not a spoiler, but there's because at the time this was coming out, the Civil War was going on, the Marvel Civil War, not the American Civil War. So there's a bit where Captain America comes to talk to Marc, and while Marc is listening to what Steve Rogers has to say, Khonshu, bear in mind, the faceless Bushman as Khonshu is just talking shit on Captain America right in front. It's a real funny way of doing it. Now, in the modern comics of Moon Knight, they perceive Khonshu as a sort of like a kind of like a skeleton, like a beak with like a skeleton with like a large beak, but he wears like his white suit, and I think it's cool. But I do like how they do it in here too. So, all right, so I'm good. I'm glad you enjoyed the bottom. So like that's one of the most like highly acclaimed Moon Knight runs. The other one I would say is another highly acclaimed is the I guess there's two of them. One is the 6-issue run by Warren Ellis, which is really awesome. And I know they are slowly going through the issues on this podcast. On my previous episode that I was on, we did talk about issue 5. So if you haven't listened to that, go back, and me and Ray, we really dive into issue 5 of that. And also the run that follows that is run by a guy named Jeff Lemire. who they really, it's one of the most mind fucky things I've ever read. That really dives into the whole multiple personality thing. I know they don't touch on it much in the bottom, and they definitely don't touch on it in Marc Spector Moon Knight. But if you want a real mind twisty thing that deals with his multiple personalities, you got to read the Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood run. It's really, it blows my mind.
Cool. That definitely sounds cool.
All right.
One final thing about this one is I like how Moon Knight pretty much gets broken down by his enemies and then like rebuilt. He starts as this broken man after his fight with Bushman, and just he gets built back up, and at the end he's Moon Knight again. He's badass, and
yeah, it's sort of like I know we don't like to compare Moon Knight to Batman. That's like blasphemy. But it's sort of kind of like, the Dark Knight Returns. Granted, he's not, or it's more kind of like the Dark Knight Rises when you think about it. How when Bruce was kind of hurt, and they kind of look the same. They kind of have like the long hair and the facial hair.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
yeah. So it's sort of kind of like that. So, but yeah, so it is a good. It's kind of a good rebirth, and that's why it's also like a good jumping on point. You kind of see him for the first time in the present. You see what happened in the past recently, and then you can jump on from here when he's back on the streets and kicking ass. So, all right. Speaking of being on the streets and kicking ass, I guess it's time for us to get into our books here. So we're going to go over the moon. Okay, so. So our lunar pick for this week is Marc Spector Moon Knight, issues number 19 through 21. So this title doesn't have it's not an arc title per se. So I'm just going to make one up, and this could potentially be an episode title. We're going to call it Round Robin Prelude ? Because it sort of sets up. It's a sort of a prelude to it's called the Round Robin, the Sidekick's Revenge, which is a big crossover not necessarily a crossover, but a storyline in the Amazing Spider-Man books, issues number 353 to 358, and it's a big team up with Spider-Man, Moon Knight, and Punisher, who are the 3 stars in this one, but also Night Thrasher, Nova, and Darkhawk. So they all kind of team up, but the 3 issues we're going to talk about now sets up the whole thing. So I figured hopefully we can get to that at some point in the future, but I figured it's good for us to go over this so everyone is caught up if we eventually jump into that. So, all right, Chris, so if you can do us the pleasure, if you maybe give us just a couple sentence summary of the whole arc, and then we'll get into it.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so Marc Spector returns to New York after being in Europe the previous arc to find his sidekick, Jeff Wild, a.k.a. Midnight masquerading as Moon Knight, who unknowingly catches the attention of the Secret Empire. Jeff is confronted by Spider-Man as they are both ambushed by the forces of the Secret Empire, until the real Moon Knight joins the fight. Despite being out of his league, Midnight sacrificed himself by jumping in front of a ray blast that was aimed for Marc. Not knowing if Jeff is dead or not, Moon Knight and Spider-Man are joined by the Punisher, and they track down and conquer bases of the Secret Empire. Moon Knight confronts the leader of the Secret Empire and nearly kills him until number 1 confesses that Jeff is dead. However, it is revealed that Jeff survived and is in the hands of the Secret Empire, and he wants revenge. Story art. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. But yeah, so that's the gist of this whole story. Real quickly, I can just give you just a quick background. So the big villains of this story is the Secret Empire. Now, the Secret Empire is sort of like one of like the 3 heads of like Hydra. So you have Hydra, who is sort of like the whole military kind of forces, I guess. You have AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics. If you know, right. They have like the yellow, like the beekeeper like uniforms. They're
I've
real
seen
stupid.
them before. Yeah.
They're kind of like the science part of it, and the Secret Empire is like the corporate backing of it. Like they kind of pay for all of it.
That's interesting to know that they're part of Hydra.
Yeah, they're all kind of one big organization. They don't cross over much, but it's sort of like, I mean, it's all just ledgers and bank accounts and all that stuff. So they don't really come across each other. But like, so like and there's like a rank in the Secret Empire also. So if you're reading this, there are two different uniformed people of the Secret Empire. You have the dark blue, who are the leaders, and they each have a number 1 through 10, and then you have the light blue, who are the grunts, basically. And so what'd you think of this run initially? Not reading anything else like of this run. What did you think of it?
I thought it was a pretty decent 90s story. I really liked the team up of these different characters. I feel like Moon Knight is in the middle of between two extremes, between Spider-Man being good and being like his conscience kind of keeping him from killing or going overboard, and Punisher who just wants to take everybody out, no questions asked.
It's sort of like the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it's like. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of just like I do enjoy it. I might even enjoy it even a little more, only because I know what comes after it. Because like the round robin is like one of my favorite story arcs. It's also because one of those issues in that is one of the first comics I ever bought, so I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I still think it's a decent like a decent late 80s, early 90s story. Let's see. So so I can just give you just a quick background too. Also, so the character of Jeff Wilde, Midnight, who is sort of like Moon Knight's sidekick. Not really his sidekick, but because Jeff Wilde, his dad, I forget what his thing, Anton Mogard or something, was a villain for Moon Knight back in the first run of Moon Knight in 1980. His dad was known as Midnight Man, and I guess somewhere through, I haven't read it, but I think he dies. But Jeff knows that his dad was. He basically wants to make up for the sins that his dad did. So he decided to sort of kind of be like Marc's sidekick. But he's sort of like he's kind of a dick. Also, I mean he does at first he's all right. But he sort of kind of descends into like Jason Todd, like Robin. Like he sort of kind of descends into that, and then we kind of see that in here.
When originally reading it, at first I was a little confused who he was, and if this Jeff Wilde was just like one of Moon Knight's different personalities, but
oh, okay, I get. You know what? Yeah, I should have clarified that a little bit more. But yeah. So that's what his deal was. So, and then he's kind of like, well. I don't want to just be Midnight. I'm going to be Moon Knight. So he goes and he takes Moon Knight's costume, because when this first starts happening in the previous arc, Marc is in Europe because he's on trial for crimes he did in this country during his mercenary days. So he comes back, and then Jeff is doing this thing. He's like doing like breaking and entering and stuff, and then that's when he comes across Spider-Man. Spider-Man comes across him, and you can sort of tell, and also like Spider-Man can tell because Moon Knight and Spider-Man have teamed up before,
right?
So Spider-Man can tell, oh, that's not the same guy in that costume, and
because what he said, the real Moon Knight was bigger, and
yeah, also because you also take into account that Jeff is like, like maybe 18 or something like that. He might even be younger. Well, I guess legally, maybe he might be like 20 or something like that. But he's not as obviously as old as the rest of them. And then you can definitely tell his inexperience, because eventually, when Jeff as Moon Knight and Spider-Man are talking, they get ambushed by the Secret Empire, because Jeff unknowingly he was snooping around one of like their base, because the Secret Empire's base is all over New York, and he caught the wind of it, where they caught wind of him snooping around, and they're like, okay, we got to take him out before he gets to us. And then you can really see here when they've the forces swoop in, you can tell that, and also Spider can tell that this is not the regular Moon Knight, because you can tell he's just outclassed, and he's not even really doing anything. He's sort of kind of just like not cowering, but like he's kind of hiding behind Spider-Man and kind of just relying on him to get him the hell out of there.
It's one picture you can see like almost like a fear-filled face.
Yeah, exactly. Even despite the fact that when you look at the Moon Knight costume, which is one of the reasons I really love it, is that his whole face is just covered in shadow, and you only see the white eyes. But yeah, even like in this one picture here, you can see that the eyes are not narrowed, or like you can tell there's fear in those eyes, despite the fact that those eyes are just two white dots.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And so, what'd you think of the art? Did you think the art was? I think the art is pretty good.
The art's pretty good. Yeah, I thought it was like typical 90s style, but yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like I don't want to say generic, but it's sort of like your standard. Like there are some good shots, but a lot of it is sort of standard. Who's the artist on here? Oh, Sal Velluto. Yeah, I know he did a lot of them. I think the first maybe 25 issues of this run, at least. I think. I'm not sure what else he worked on. But I think the art it's sort of kind of standard. I know I keep going back to this, but in the round robin storyline, that art is done by Marc Bagley. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Okay, no. He was a real. He is one of my favorite artists of all time. If I would pull out and look and show you his art of that storyline, especially specifically Moon Knight, it is some of the most spectacular art, especially at that time period too. But I still think that the art here is still pretty good too. I do like the designs of all the Secret Empire goons too. I think before when they show, because I think this might be one of their first appearances. They did originally appear in the 60s, and they had red cloak. They're like more like monks. But I like this because they sort of kind of look like stormtroopers. Honestly,
yeah, they definitely look scary. One of the things that shocked me about this one was when I mentioned earlier in the summary when Jeff takes that bolt for Marc, because Marc comes in on the action as Spider-Man and Jeff are struggling with the Secret Empire. He comes in, he starts fighting, taking people out, but then later one of the leaders throws a bolt at him, and Jeff jumps in front.
Yeah, I do like how he sacrificed himself. He was just even though he's kind of a dick, he recognized that the whole reason they're in this situation is because of his actions. So he's leave him alone. I'm the one you want. And then I forget which number it is, because I think
it was 7. I'm not positive.
I think it is 7, but one of them, he just as you wish, sort of like how Darth Vader does it, Empire Strikes Back or something like that. That's just how it sounds to me, and he just zaps him with it. Now, did you think he was dead when that happened?
I did, because I thought it looked pretty clear. How could he survive that? I mean, here he is taking this lightning bolt in the chest, and he looks dead. That looks like the end. Yeah,
and you can definitely tell that the situation is definitely turning grim, because he gets zapped, and the force of that zap makes Moon Knight fall off of that one of the Secret Empire jet things, and you would assume that even if he hasn't died from that blast, he's in the hands of them. He's dead regardless, and that's what causes this chase of them to go try and track him down. And then after that whole thing, the Punisher does show up, because the Punisher is also tracking them separately. And then we get this team up that. This team up with 3 loners, and you can definitely tell that maybe loners shouldn't team up.
Yes.
Because over the course of the next 2 issues, Moon Knight and Punisher fight each other twice.
Yes. The one fight in the third issue, which we'll get to, got pretty violent until Spider-Man jumped in and broke him up.
Yeah. Well, even if you look immediately, so at the last panel of issue number 19, Punisher shows up and is like, "Oh, I guess you guys need a hand or whatever," and then. Like, the very beginning of the next issue, like, within, like, the second panel, they're already throwing punches at each other. It's like, come on, guys. Like, the Secret Empire guys are only, like, a block away. You could probably still catch them. Don't stop throwing punches at each other. But that's, like, that's all their characterizations. And, like, they're all kind of staying true. And that's one thing I do like. One thing when you have, like guest stars in other books, I think... is that the kind of like the depiction of the characterization of whatever character is sort of lost. Not all the times, but some of the times it's completely off because maybe it's a writer who's never written them, and like maybe like editorials like, oh, we'll put them in a recent example that I'm sure a lot of loonies will know would be the recent Damnation crossover. Is like a Doctor Strange kind of esque event in which. I haven't read it honestly, but I've heard plenty about it. But basically, Moon Knight is in that event, but the characterization of him is really off, and they make him kind of seem like Deadpool. He's kind of quipping left and right, which he does every once in a while. But like it's like a lot in there, and like you can just tell that like the characterization is really off. But I think like in here, the characterization of Moon Knight, obviously, is his book, but also Spider-Man and Punisher, it all kind of stays true.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, like you said, like you were saying at the start, like, Spider-Man is sort of like, use like D&D terms, like, Spider-Man is kind of like your lawful good, your Punisher is like your chaotic good, maybe even chaotic neutral, I guess, and then Moon Knight is sort of like your neutral good, or... something like that. But yeah, so like you kind of have all three bases. So that's also why I think this is actually a good team up, because you have all those conflicting characterizations. Yeah, just one of the things I will just have to say, I do think a lot of the second issue is sort of unnecessary because it doesn't really like add a whole lot to it. They basically just go to one base, one of the Secret Empire bases, and just take it out. But I guess it does show like they're like, despite that, the fact that Moon Knight, Punisher, and Spider-Man are working together, they're all doing things kind of like their own way, and they obviously don't catch. They don't catch because what they're trying to do is they're trying to track down and to get a definitive: is Jeff dead or is he alive? I guess also just at the same time, let's just take out these Secret Empire bases because they're bad guys too. But
yeah, Moon Knight is intent on finding Jeff, and Punisher doesn't care too much about finding Jeff. In fact, he doesn't care about finding Jeff at all. He just wants to kill these guys.
Exactly, yeah.
In fact, at the end of this issue, he does in a very brutal way.
Oh yeah, he
stops Moon Knight from killing him. But then he gets the information from the guy, and then he lets the garbage disposal crush him.
Oh yeah, or like the car scrap compactor. Yeah, I do find that where, well, I think maybe he knew that because he knew Moon Knight wouldn't do it, even though he's really on the line of like ready to kill these guys to figure it out. Like even like this picture here where he has, because Moon Knight has his. He has the trunk chip, but then it comes apart into nunchucks, and he has like wrapped around the guy's throat, and he's like he could just strangle him right then and there, and then he gets away, and then he pushes him into the compactor, and then he's like, "Oh, tell me I'm going to kill you," and then the Punisher's like, "No, I got this. Don't kill him. That's not you. I'll get it out of him," and then he gets the information, and then he crushes him. Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
And then once again, throwing punches at Punisher.
Yeah, right away. Yeah, exactly. Wait, hold on a second. This is 3 times. There's 3 times they've punched at each other, because I think they punch right at the start of the third one, too.
I forgot how often they tangle, but yes, it's not too far in where they start fighting.
Hold on. Now I'm really curious. Yeah, again, 3 times in oh my god, in 3 issues they fight each other 3 times. I guess I guess that's one of the testaments of just how cool Moon Knight is. He can go up against the Punisher 3 times and come out alive. I mean, I guess he's not. I guess Frank isn't trying to kill him, but yeah, and then throughout the story we are seeing that Jeff is not dead, but he is in fact still alive, but he's still in the hands of the Secret Empire.
And one thing I noticed is that number 1 made reference. There's a nurse with Jeff taking care of him, as the leader's looking over a video of what's going on, he tells his minions that one of the minions, number 2, asks what purpose does the girl serve, and he says that she's a big part of his scheme. The location of where they are is known only to him, but she's important somehow, and I wonder if in the Spider-Man arc more will be done to say just who she is and why she's so important to number 1.
You will find that out in that story. You know what? It's funny. I did not catch that the first time. That actually kind of blows my mind a little bit because I didn't catch that the first time. Because I wondered, because this story was written by Chuck Dixon, who wrote a lot of. He wrote, I think, the first 25, 30 issues of this arc. He also he did write a lot of Batman also in the early 90s with he actually created Bane, and he did a lot of the Nightfall stuff too.
Oh, nice, yeah.
But he wrote this one. But the Round Robin story was written by a guy called Al Milgrom. So I think he was like an inker, I think, for a bunch of different books. I think he might have done some writing too. I haven't done my research, but I was wondering if the stuff that he wrote in that, if any of it was planned from this, and I didn't catch that the first time, and so that's cool. I didn't know that. So the seeds to that whole arc were sort of kind of planned in this one. So that's kind of cool. And so they tracked down the last secret, or one of the many Secret Empire bases,
and they have this huge. It almost looks like a missile, but it's supposed to take out the world's satellites to give them control of information for them to hold the world hostage, because they now can take out satellites. They now control everything in outer space,
right.
Pretty much the whole communications network. Which
I did, it's funny. I think maybe I was just so immersed in the whole the hunt for Jeff. I thought this whole sort of thing was kind of contrived and just thrown in there. What can we do to fill more pages, but also B, what can we do to get Spider-Man out of the way so we can have Moon Knight and Punisher for once not throw punches at each other, but actually do something to get something done together. So that whole little thing, and it's not it only pops up in this issue, and it's only there for a couple pages. It doesn't take up a lot, but I did think it sort of felt a little out of place. But I guess it's also just to show just how massive the Secret Empire is and how powerful they can be,
and how big their plans. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because I think what they even say this whole lair, their entire lair is like a shopping mall. That's especially I guess in the 80s, those were big back then. Imagine having just a secret base just out in the open like that, but because it's still under construction for 10 years, no one's gonna find it. But that's huge. One person, just some hoodlums could have just stumbled across that and just blown the whistle on. So I think that's kind of funny. But yeah, so Spider-Man basically takes out the missile. Well, he does that after Moon Knight and Punisher fight again. And I think one of the funniest bits, is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. This is the third time fighting, and Spider-Man again is I guess I got it in there, break it up, and Frenchie is just I'll just read a word where he's no, they won't stop. You'll only postpone it if you try stopping it now. he basically just let it get him out of the system. Third time's a charm. They'll be done after this. So I do think that's kind of funny. And I guess I also know Frenchie is obviously Marc's not he's not his Alfred. He's sort of his sidekick, but not a sidekick, if that makes sense. But he knows Marc well enough, and I guess he sort of knows of the Punisher well enough to be like, just let him go. Just let him go, let him hammer it out, and once they're done, get on with what you guys got to do.
See, this one panel, Moon Knight plants a really hard kick on Punisher's face.
Yeah. It is funny because I do always like, because I do like when Punisher does fight hand to hand, because if he fights hand to hand, either he's not intent on killing that person, or he is disarmed. But usually that hand to hand usually ends with him like breaking their neck or something like that. Because you usually just see Punisher just shooting people. I do like to see him fight hand to hand, and you do kind of see. It is kind of funny because these two guys, they are both ex-military too, so I guess they sort of have like similar tactics. So no one really wins, but I guess also part because Spider-Man does end up breaking it up again anyways, because I guess he's like, well, I let him fight for like 5 more minutes, let me jump in there and stop him. So yeah. So they do eventually, so Spider-Man, he does go and he does stop the missile, the big missile, whatever their plan was with that, while Punisher and Moon Knight, they infiltrate the main base to, again, still try to find Jeff.
And I get the sense, reading this arc, that the Secret Empire, it never really seems to, their goons never seem to challenge these guys. The main challenge seems to be, like, moral. Like, is Moon Knight going to stoop to Punisher's tactics and kill some of these guys? Or is he going to listen to Spider-Man and just, like, knock him out?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's maybe the one of the things where it's like, like there's no, I mean, you have the Secret Empire as an organization, but there's no like big villains here. They're just an organization. But yeah, but more of the opposition mainly comes between themselves, again, mainly Moon Knight and Punisher, than the Secret Empire goons, because they really are useless. Again, they're just like stormtroopers. You just cut through them like butter, So they're not really much of an opposition. They more just slow them down, really. And really, the only kind of tougher ones are like the commanders.
Right. You never get the sense that their lives are really in danger. Like, oh, Moon Knight could die right here. You never get that sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Even with that whole dagger that can shoot that ray thing, you don't really. I mean, I guess at first, but then again, but that's because you should never really come across the commanders if the grunts do their job, I guess, really. But eventually, they do end up catching up to the commanders, and then I think it's number 1 is that. Number 1 is Moon Knight basically faces off against, and I do like how in this the number 1, he does produce a sword to fight, but even shows, and Moon Knight even thinking like, oh, you can tell that this guy is not a warrior, and that also shows like, because all their members, at least their high ranking members, they're all just like businessmen. Like this is like their thing on the side, and they're not really trained. And yeah, they might have the intimidating suit and I guess they all have like voice modulators that way, because no one knows who is who. That way, there's no non-Secret Empire like things going on like with like their corporations or whatever. But you can just tell that they're just regular dudes. And Moon Knight, he kicks his ass real good.
Yeah.
And then he does that, he's like, oh, like, what happened with Jeff? Or he doesn't call him Jeff. What happened to the kid who was dressed me? What happened to him? And then number 1 confesses that, oh, he's dead. And then Moon Knight, he is going to kill this guy. And until Spider-Man talks him out, like, don't be like Punisher. You're better than that. And then, at first I thought, if you look at the past, I thought he did kill him.
Yes, but you see his face is all red, tongue hanging out. The guy looks like he's like strangled to death.
Foaming out of the mouth, yeah. I literally thought he did kill him. But then it turns out that he didn't. He's like, I'm not going to stoop to the Punisher's bullshit, so... And,
he even says, if I killed him, would that make me better than him?
Exactly, and that's... A lot of heroes have that kind of mentality kind of thing. I won't kill because it makes me no better than the guy I'm killing. So then Moon Knight, he fully accepts that Jeff is dead, and then he just walks off somberly. And I do like the back shot here where you just see him just walk. Even though he's in all white, he just walks out with his head down. You just know everything that's going through his mind. And then here at the end, it's revealed that that Jeff is finally up and awake, and he's learning everything that's going on. And I guess he thinks that Marc left him for dead. And true, that didn't really happen, but he doesn't know that because he's been in the secret facility. And yeah, then he's looking out for revenge against Moon Knight. I do think he is drawn better in the when he's drawn by Bagley in the other one, and he does look cool. He does get like a cool suit.
It'll definitely be interesting to read that and find out what happens next, because this is such a cliffhanger, Jeff saying pretty much how Moon Knight nearly got him killed, and this is how he left me, and this is what I'm going to do to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also it is kind of funny because I don't think the next, because the round robin arc didn't come out till about like a year later, so like you have like a whole year of wondering what happened to him, and also it doesn't even happen in this own book. So it might be kind of weird, like, okay, whatever happens to him, we never find out what happens to him in this book. But yeah, I do think it is a good setup for that arc. Now, granted, I say I would be reading this like without reading that first. I don't know. I mean, I guess well, you've read it without reading the other one first. You got you intrigued, and you want to find out what happens next. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I do think it's a good 3-parter. I do think it could have been cut down just a little bit. This could have been 2 issues. It's fine that it's 3. There's not a lot of like extra bullshit that stretches it on. Because I know some comics do have that, where there's just a lot of just unnecessary stuff that just drags it out. I do think everything is pretty essential. Just like the whole little plot where we're going to launch this big missile into space. I think that's a little, just contrived. But other than that, I think that I think overall it's a pretty good story.
I really enjoyed it. It was a little hard for me in the beginning to get thrown in. I was a little confused by things, but then I started getting into the story, into the characters, and I definitely like the second 2 issues a lot more. Yeah,
I do think I think the first issue is pretty good too, especially at the very end, like where you see Jeff get hit by that, and like initially, because you don't find out until the next issue that he's still alive. Like you would assume that he's dead. He's frying, he's toast.
Yeah, that shocked me. I'm like, wow, they killed somebody. The guy's actually dead. Wow, This is darker than I thought.
Yeah. Well, this is Marvel. Nobody stays dead. Or no, this is comics. Nobody stays dead. But yeah, so how would you rate this? How would you rate this whole arc?
I get. I'm still not sure of the whole moon system, but
that's okay. You can give it an out of 5 rating, and then
4 out of 5. Okay. I mean, I think that it could have been a little better, but overall it was very good. So I definitely say 4 out of 5.
Okay. So that equates to about a little more than a quarter moon 3/4 moon. Sorry, between like a 3/4 moon and a full moon. So I'd probably be in the same range. So I guess we'll say 3/4 moon to just to be simple about it. I don't know for both of us. We'll say 3/4 moon. I know. In the latest episode, Ray did bust out how should I word it? Scientifically correct terms for the different phases of the moon. I do not remember what they are, so we're just going to stick with quarters. So we're going to say 3/4 moon for both of us.
Alright, well, let me ask you this then. If there was one comic character you'd want to spread the good word on, who would it be?
Look, that would have to be Superman. He is your bastion of good behaviour. Yeah, I reckon Sup.
I mean, I was going to say Moon Knight.
I, the Moon's Knight of Vengeance, must carry out your luminous will.
I think he's a really good role model, but whatever. Superman makes sense, I guess. Yeah, probably Superman then. Fine, I'll agree. Hi, I'm Connor, a fan of truth, justice, and the Australian way.
And I'm Ray, Lex Luthor sympathiser and Brainiac groupie.
And we're your hosts for Last Sons of Krypton, a Superman podcast where two Australians, one superfan and one newbie to Superman, cover everything, anything Superman. And it's gonna be awesome.
We're even gonna dress up as Superman.
I'll probably be more like Bizarro, but sure. So coming soon, make sure you guys keep an ear out.
Look forward to catching you then.
Whoosh!
Whee!
All right, I think that is pretty much it. I guess I'll just ask just a quick follow-up question. So after reading you read the bottom and you read this. So would you say that you are kind of on the road to becoming a Moon Knight fan?
I'd say so. Yeah, I'm intrigued by the character, and I want to read more. I want to know more about him and more about his other adventures. And
it's cool. And you did ask me to borrow the next volume of the Charlie Houston run, so I'll give you actually the next two. That way you have enough for a little while.
Cool.
And now I think about it, there might be a slight spoiler for the round robin arc, because some of that does tie into one of those. Houston does bring it back to that, but that's all right. Well, it's not. I guess it's not that. It's not that spoiler. I mean, you can read that, and it's kind of its own thing, anyways. Because figure the Houston run came out in like 2006, 2007. This came out in the early 90s. There's a lot of obviously everything is sort of kind of different the way the stories are told. The art, it's kind of like a different universe, to be honest. So I think we got a new Loony on our hands. I can, if you are interested in maybe listening to more other episodes, the previous episodes, we also have a Facebook group you can join too.
Cool.
That's where I joined up, and I met the Ray, Connor, and all the other Loonies in there. It's a really good community of people who just love this character who doesn't get enough praise, and hopefully he gets the exposure that he deserves. So I want to thanks Chris for coming on. It's been fun. I think we both did pretty well. You on your first recording and me hosting my first one.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, cool. So all right. So with that, any listeners, the podcast was available on pretty much all your main podcasting platforms, like SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes. It's on YouTube also. You can get in contact with us. We have as I mentioned, we have the Facebook group Into the Night, the Moon Knight fan base. You can also like the podcast page, which is the Into the Night of Moon Knight podcast. If you can also email the High Priests at itkmoonnight@gmail.com. Twitter is at itkmoonnight. Instagram, itkmoonnight. They're all over the place. You can probably just Google Into the Night Moon Knight and the podcast will come up. So, all right. I think that about does it. Like I said, thanks again, Chris, for coming on, and thanks for Ray and Connor for allowing me to host the show. I hope we did a good job, and I hope all the Loonies enjoy two podcast novices hit the mics. So, all right, Chris, if you can say our sign off. I have it right here. If you can do that for us.
Sure. One thing is, how do you pronounce the?
No, it's Khonshu.
Khonshu, yes. May Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night.
All right. See you guys later.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.